are going to talk about marine ecosystem mangroves. There are three adaptations in marine ecosystem mangrove. The first one is pneumatophores, the second one is buttress roots, lastly is cable roots. There are two types of factors which are biotic and abiotic factors. For biotic factors, there are predation and mutualism. Next, for abiotic factors, there are 5 examples which are atmosphere gases, water, nutrients, soil, and sun. For limiting factors in mangroves, there are 2 factors which are agriculture and tidal. Next, we are going to talk about mound. There are 8 characteristics of mound ecosystem. The first one is structural complexity, and the secondly is microclimate regulation, and thirdly is resource storage and management. Fourth is defense mechanism. Next is water regulation. The moisture retention is mound structure helps retain moisture, crucial for the survival of many mound-dwelling organisms. And for environmental influence, the soil aeration tunneling activities improve soil aeration, enhancing root growth and microbial activity. For nutrient cycling, the decomposition is mound-building organisms contribute to the decomposition of organic matter, enriching the soil with nutrients. And lastly is biodiversity hotspot. Lastly, for puddle, mangrove ecosystem often have puddles.
Next, we will talk about the forest ecosystem. The Unimas forest, which is part of the Borneo rainforest, hosts a variety of plant species adapted to its specific environmental conditions. Here are some key adaptations of plants in this tropical rainforest. Firstly is strip tips. Secondly is large leaves. Thirdly is buttress roots. Fourthly is epiphytes. Next is lianas and vines. After that, rapid growth and high photosynthetic rates are also the adaptations of plants in tropical rainforests. Next is symbiotic relationships, and lastly is chemical defenses. These adaptations enable plants in the Unimas forest to thrive in the highly competitive and dynamic tropical rainforest environment. Let's move on to abiotic factors in the forest ecosystem. There are 6 abiotic factors, which are atmospheric gases, light, water, temperature, wind, and soil. Meanwhile, for the biotic factors is commensalism. It is a commensalism between ants and epiphytes. Ants obtain shelter and nesting sites within the epiphytes, while the epiphytes are not harmed or benefit by the presence of ants.
Then we have found artificial ecosystem at real living level.
Creating and maintaining a marine artificial ecosystem involves several adaptations and strategies to replace natural marine environment and support aquatic life. Here are key adaptations specific to marine artificial ecosystem. Firstly, water quality management. Next, salinity control, temperature regulation, lighting, nutrient management. After that, habitat structures, species selection and compatibility, disease management, and lastly, monitoring and automation. The abiotic factors in aquarium are light, temperature, and atmospheric gases. Meanwhile, for biotic factor is competition. For the abiotic factor, which are light and water, that used by green plants to undergo photosynthesis. For the biotic factor, which are commensalism, competition, and parasitism.
Lastly is natural ecosystem, which is Unimas link. Firstly, I will talk about zonation. There have 4 zones, which is littoral zone, profundal zone, limnatic zone, and lastly, benthic zone. Next is water level, which is epilimnion, metalimnion, and hypolimnion. Then biotic factors of lake, which is producer, consumers, and decomposers. While for abiotic factors of lake, we have water, substrate, temperature, light, and nutrients. For ecological process of lake, we have photosynthesis, nutrient cycling, energy flow, respiration, and decomposition. We also have seasonal dynamics of lake. Firstly is thermal certification. Then for ice cover, in cold climate, lake may freeze over in winter, affecting gas exchange and biological activity. Human impact to the lake. Firstly is pollution, secondly is climate change, and lastly is invasive species. Around the lake, we have found a pattern. Biotic factors of paddle is predation, competition, and mutualism. Biotic factors that we have found around the lake. Firstly is competition, secondly is parasitism, and lastly is predation.